I was having a discussion with my dad today about a sermon that we had both recently listened to. We had a little bit different take on what we walked away with, and it wasn't an argument, but it did get me thinking about taking a break from discussing the things that should draw you in to Christianity, fundamentals, things that you should naturally gravitate towards, like faith, forgiveness, grace, things like that. Love as an underlying theme throughout all of this, and talk about some of the things that might push you away. And it's probably some of the things that has made you reticent to becoming a Christian or joining a church in the past, and that is a church that does not have its priorities set in place and does not support its congregation. I want to just talk about it in brief. I want to do a much longer episode on this, where we get a little bit more in depth. But since we tend to be rolling closer to the point in these discussions and these videos where we start to talk about joining a church, and maybe you are reaching the point where you are already looking. Just some pointers. I mean, not even pointers, but just an account from myself as someone who's been on the receiving end of a church that was not looking out for the best interests of its congregation. To know that they're out there, and there's no avoiding it because of just the nature of faith. That there are people who exercise and devote themselves for the wrong reasons, or don't have the proper attitude about it. It's also a good lesson to learn about what you don't want to do as you grow in your faith. This is very real. And like I said, many of you might have already been affected by this and might have turned you away in the past. You're not alone. You're not alone. And what you experience from other people's problems and other people's mistakes and their actions does not change the fundamentals that we've been discussing so far and what the expectation of God is. We're going to see corruptions, perversions, mistakes. We're going to see all of that, not just in an individual level, but also at a group level. People make mistakes in groups all the time, and I think sometimes you notice that certain issues are more prevalent in groups because it's easier to go along with something that everybody else is going along with, because it's more, you feel more pressured to believe that the decision is correct, or it's more convincing that decision is correct. And who am I to talk about this? Well, I'm a nobody. My name is Stuart Davis. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not here trying to get you to join my congregation, not here to get you to donate to any cause or charity. I'm not a pastor, biblical scholar. I'm not a missionary. I'm just an average man, a flawed man, trying to give some exposure to Christianity in kind of its raw form. Your average believer, giving some outreach and giving you some influence on what things are really about. Because I feel like we're very similar to folks where the perception is sometimes that Christians are apart or feel like they are apart. And this is part of the reason. We've seen churches in the past, we've seen groups of people in the past where they look down on others. And that is something that we are specifically taught and specifically called to not do. But it's an easy temptation when you're doing the right thing, or when you feel like you're doing the right thing, to look down on people who you think are doing worse than you, or committing some sin that you might view as greater than your own. This is a terrible attitude, and this is one of the things that will push somebody away faster than anything. Some of you, like I said, mentioned this a couple times before. Some of you might have already experienced this. This might be why you don't, or why you struggle with believing in the first place. If these are the representatives of God, why would I believe, or why would I want to worship him? Well, the problem is there's good and bad in the world. There is good and bad in Christianity. There is good and bad in our lives, and that's part of the search when you're looking for a place to get connected. Um, that you have to be mindful of. Or when you get in there, do you get the feeling that you're welcome? Um, that the folks seem knowledgeable, accepting, and at the same time understanding of the rule set, as it were, that we are held to as Christians. People who want to lift you up and not look down on you. Um, my personal account, I'm not going to get into many details about. It mostly involves family members. It is not a horror story by any means, but it was a very real issue that happened that ended up pushing my family away from organized church for a long time, and I was the first one to go back into it, to start getting back into organized church, because I was a little separated from the situation, and I had already had people reaching out to me because I had already left that church. When I was in fourth grade, the church that I was growing up with had a split, which if you deal with small churches, a lot of times you'll see them split, because as small churches we tend to be a lot more locally centered on the community, and as you grow a little bit, or as new generations come up, ideas change, and sometimes that doesn't settle with the entire church. So a lot of times you'll see splits. Sometimes they're amicable, sometimes they're not so much. That's why it's always important to be connected in the community in general, and not just to a specific church. So you have people to reach out to, even if things happen. Some churches go bankrupt. Some churches just lose enough people where they can't stay together anymore. And it happens. And that particular thing happened with the church that I grew up in. I have lots of fond memories of that place. I'm still friends with folks who go there. The minister there at the time married me and my wife. His son is only a few years older than me, and he's doing an excellent job right now. But when we left that church, we looked around at a couple of other churches. I remember visiting a little bit. I'm in fourth grade, so my memory isn't, I don't understand everything that's going on. But I do know that we ended up deciding on a church that a lot of the other congregation members who had left started going to. And one of the things that struck me immediately as a fourth grader going into Sunday school was how unwelcome it seemed like I was. I showed up. Didn't seem like there was much welcoming from the Sunday school teacher, which is where you should get the most acceptance from. The Sunday school teacher should be trying to, get you as involved with things and get the other kids there to talk to you and engage with you. It was basically, I showed up and I was ignored for the most part, and then as I learned to know these people, I still felt specifically ostracized from the group. Going into middle school and high school, I've mentioned it in another episode, I didn't have a very good time there. I was going to school with some of these folks, and they either ignored me or were openly hostile to me. I didn't feel comfortable about that, and I didn't feel like I was getting any support within the church as a whole. I felt kind of like an outsider most of the time. So by the time I turned 18, I was mostly removed from it. I went to a couple of college level Sunday school classes, or Sundays. We were in a Sunday school group geared mostly for college folks, and then I kind of left. I had a friend of mine who invited me to a small group, which ended up actually probably doing more to save my faith in organized church than anything else, because I got connected to a small group with people that I am still very deeply involved with on a spiritual level to this day. But because I had already disengaged with from that, it didn't affect me as much. I had already kind of thought this place was not very welcoming, not a very good, not a place with people who were very friendly. My family on the other hand, were much more connected. And when when we needed them the most, we got anything but, and it really affected how my immediate family viewed organized churches. And I won't speak for them that much, but it affected me not even going there enough that for a long time I'd said, I don't need church. I don't need church. I don't need to be connected with a bunch of folks who are going to pretend to honor God's wishes and commandments and then just do it for social points or do it for some sort of recognition within the community. I don't need it. Don't want it. Don't want to be involved in it. That was me leaving a church with the wrong attitude. Not I had the wrong. I did have a bad attitude about it, but I'm talking about how the church had a bad attitude. And because I had a firm grasp in the faith, and I'd had my epiphany moment where somebody had taken me aside and really sat me down to take my faith seriously. I feel like I was able to rebound from that and weather that storm pretty well. But I could easily see how somebody can be shaken enough to leave the church and leave their faith in God altogether. And it's a sad thing because that thing happens all the time. That kind of story happens all the time. And you hear big horror stories about, sexual abuse, fraud, affairs. That kind of stuff happens in a church. It happens in real life outside of the church. It's going to happen in church too. Because what is a church but a collection of people, a collection of flawed people? And the difference and what you want to look for is a church where folks are open about how they're flawed and understanding about how they're flawed. The big red flag that I can tell you is that if folks feel like they've got their act together, like really got their act together, and they've got a handle on this whole God thing, and that folks who don't have problems and they look like they're condescending to it, don't go there. Don't go there. And maybe your perception is wrong, or maybe it's right. But if your perception is there, at least, the church is not going to work out for you because you've already got it in your mind that they don't have their head in the game. You need to go to a place where you can connect. And I'm not talking about a church that's going to blow sunshine up your butt and tell you that everything you did is okay, and so you just feel accepted. No, you need to feel like you're learning about church. You need to feel like you're accepted for who you are, or accepted as a person with flaws and problems. And they need to understand. They need to be coaching you up, not looking down on you. It's an important thing. It's an important thing because, like I said, it's probably affected many of you. It's affected me, and it's affected loved ones of mine at a very personal level. I have very close friends who were involved in a much bigger, they weren't involved in it, but they went to a church with a much bigger scandal, and it shook them deeply. They were able to recover. You probably know people like that. You probably know folks and you probably know folks who have just walked away completely. Don't get discouraged about that. Do not let the flaws of other people discourage you from faith and belonging to something better and looking for someone who is looking for you, is waiting for you. It's an important thing, and you will find more fulfillment if you keep searching and looking for other folks who are searching and looking like you, or have found something that you're looking for, and connecting with them. Support one another. That's what we're here for, because we've all got problems. We've all got sins. We've all got times when we are in doubt. we need those. We need we need people around us to help us out, and we need to be there for other people when they're down. This is all about giving grace. This is all about forgiveness. This is all about faith. These are things that we've talked about in these previous episodes. This is things that you believe in. And once you believe in them, and once you're ready to move forward, it's time to put it in action. And you should also and so if you're ready to put that stuff in action, which is you should be expecting out of churches that you're looking for, is people who are already putting it in action, and people who are going to engage you and help you put those things in action. If you like what you're seeing, click like, subscribe to this channel. If you have a comment, good, bad, or whatever, leave it. I want to see it. I want to see that engagement from you guys. I want to hear what you're all thinking. I want this to be a success. I want you guys to find something, even if it's a little bit of a nudge in the right direction that you get out of this. I hope it gets there. But in the meantime, you guys stay safe. God bless. Godspeed.